Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Welcome back, everyone. This is Allie. I'm your host, and today I wanted to talk about a little bit more of why I wanted to start a podcast and why I became a medium in the first place. And it's really because I wanted to be able to tell the stories of the people on the other side that didn't get a chance to tell their stories. And in the very beginning, when I first started, my awakening, for those of you who didn't listen to that episode, it's at the beginning of the podcast. Feel free to go back and listen to that too. But my awakening was, or I should say reawakening, was very, very fast. Like, I used to have a lot of experiences with this type of stuff when I was really young, and I very much tried to shut it down. And as I had the door swing right back open, one of the things that happened for me very quickly, and this is one of the things I don't talk about as often, but I actually had certain beings on the other side, and they were very well-known people who were coming to me saying, I want you to channel me. I have things I want to share with your group. And at the time that meant like my Facebook group or the private psychic circles that I was in, where I would privately channel for small groups of people. And they would say, I have things I want to tell people about what I wish I had known when I was alive. And I had since kind of moved away from this work, but back in the day, way before TikTok existed, I'm sure you can find some of them in my previous Facebook group and stuff that I don't really use anymore, but there are still a lot of channelings in there. I actually did quite a few channelings with deceased celebrities, politicians, artists, certain musicians, writers and authors, etc. And all of these different people had things that they wanted to share about their human experience. And keep in mind, many of them, like, I would be kind of aware of who they were, but I didn't really know much about them. Like, I didn't know a lot about their lives or their careers. Maybe I knew like a movie they had been in, but I'm not the type to really keep up with pop culture or celebrity culture. It's just not really my thing. And so a lot of the details they were giving me very quickly were things that I was like, wow, I can't believe this is coming through. Why is this person trying to talk to me about this? And a lot of it happened in private first, where they would come in and just, I'd be sitting at a coffee shop, and stream of consciousness, all of these words would just start coming in. And it was like I was sitting there, and I would pretend that I was reading my book or pretend that I was writing, but I would get which is called auto writing. I would kind of let myself go out and my brain go out and just listen and take in everything they were saying. So it was like I was a full receiver. And they would just talk about things that they wish that they had known. And I could see them and hear the inflection in their voices and the different ways that they talk, their different vernaculars. And like I said, very quickly, after I had several visitors come in who are very well known, I very quickly started to channel them for my Facebook group and for my friends, because they had such wonderful, beautiful messages. I was like, I kind of had to move my own ego out of the way, because my fear was like, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting that out there publicly. People are going to think I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and that I'm making things up. And it was I really wrestled with it for a little bit, but all I knew was that the unconditional love that was pouring through me and to me from them every time just told me that this has got to be something good. And so I finally kind of just bit the bullet, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I started to channel these different beings, like I said, for Facebook groups and online. And so I brought through a number of different people, and it was over the course of I want to say like a year and a half, 2 years. And once I brought through one publicly, which the first one that I brought through publicly was Princess Di. And I'm going to record another message from her for my Patreon group, because she came through again this month and was like, I have a message to share. And I said, absolutely, noted. We'll sit down and we'll record that soon. I've noticed she likes when I speak live though. And a lot of them did, because then I could, it's hard to explain how that channel of energy works, but a lot of them seem to like that more and work with that energy better. But so she was the first one, and it was a relatively short channeling, but I remember just feeling like floored. And the feedback from people was like, oh my God, it's like you are using her same language. You're using her same like ways that she talked and things that like I could see her saying that. It doesn't sound like it's you. And there are certain people who are actually very clairaudient who are like, I swear to God, Allie, it's like when you're doing that kind of clear conduit channeling, you're not stopping and listening to what the person on the other side is saying. You're literally almost like letting them speak through you, but you're still aware and you're lucid. So you're not you're not full trance channeling. You're not being possessed. It's nothing like that. It's more of a lucid state channeling. But so you're aware of what's going on. You're like in control if you want to be. But really, you have to move your mind over to the side, and it's almost like they kind of borrow your voice box for a little bit. So people started like there were a couple people who said I literally could hear her when you were talking. And I was like, that is wild. Like they were like, I could hear her in your words. It was almost like your voice changed. But that wasn't everyone. Like it was just a couple of people who I think are probably very clairaudient. And so she was the first one. And it made me kind of think about all the other channelings I did. And you will still be able to find some of them on YouTube as well. I put just, I think maybe like 4 or 5 of them on YouTube out of I don't know. I did tons of them. But basically, I took a lot of time to really like channel these different beings, and I wanted to talk about what it's like when you get a little bit overwhelmed by that type of work, because as I brought through just 1 or 2, more started to come and say, I have a message to share with the group. And now keep in mind, I always had control over this. It was never you have to, or like if I said, I'm not really comfortable, they would like move away and, pull their energy back. And that's how, when you're truly working with the other side, that's how they work. They're not going to crowd your space. The only time I actually give them permission to like come swinging in and like actually, tap on my shoulder a little bit more is if like I really need to do something, as in like, hey, you need to listen, don't get in that car right now. Or you need to listen, like pay attention. You know what I mean? Someone's in danger, or we need you to do this, like, so more of that type of like a little bit of a warning, and which never feels ominous from them. It just feels very clear and very strong. For lack of a better way of saying it. So, I just knew that like, this was something that I had to, but it was like, I felt like this is my purpose. This is part of why I'm here. This is part of my calling, and I'm here to do this. And so I very quickly, as I was doing those channelings, I started to have some people come through that actually triggered me a little bit. But when I felt them come through, it was like I could feel this massive unconditional love that came from them. Like it was very clear to me, this is not just like the ego or like everything we had known about this person. I was like, I'm not trying to get canceled. I'm not trying to, like, I was like, absolutely not, no way. And so there were a couple of people that actually, I was like, this is really controversial. I don't know how I feel about channeling this. But at the same time, I knew that these beings that were coming through said they were, showing me and telling me I have really important things to say about what I did in my lifetime. And we're talking like people who did pretty not great things, for lack of a better way of saying it. And, so one, like, for example, one was, I'm like, I still have that ego thing, like a little bit of fear that kicks in, because I'm like, I don't want to get canceled. But actually, you wouldn't be able to find this online because I have turned the video off just because of my own fears. But I actually channeled the Columbine shooters at one point because of the messages that they brought through were so important and so beautiful. And it made me realize, like, these beings, when they pass, when they make their transition to the other side, they very literally, if these people can return to the purity and the everlasting benevolence and love of the soul, then hope isn't lost. And it wasn't like we're all forgiven and, some being in the sky does that, yada, yada. They said it's more that you remember who and what you truly are when you pass. And so I remember when they came through me, I just got chills. When they came through me the first time just to talk, and it was just me and them, I was like, no way. I don't want to do that. Like, no, you have to go. And I called in my own guides and was like, no, and I wanted them to kind of like push them out because I was so triggered because I I'm sure for many of us who are, especially millennials here, I'm sure many of us still remember exactly where we were and what we were doing and how old we were when that shooting happened, and how it changed everything. It literally changed everything for so many of us overnight. And so I was immensely triggered. I was like, no way am I doing that. But what I noticed very quickly was that the messages and the love that came through from them was all about what they wish they had understood and known when they were alive, and how different things can be. And I don't want to get into conversations of the semantics of free will and fate. I just don't think it's even worth that. But they were saying there's still so much time. And so it became very clear to me that these two were doing all of these things to try and stop these things from happening in the future. And they knew, like, we're not going to be able to prevent everything, because not everyone on earth is open and listening to their intuition. They're not all listening to their higher consciousness or their soul, right? And so it's like anyone on the other side could try so hard, but and on earth could try so hard, but you're not going to be able to get through to them, right? But they did say one of the things that they do now is they do a lot of healing and sending love and trying to talk people out of doing these heinous things now. They one of them even said that he works with like gun reform laws, and like he tries to like whisper things to lawmakers like, hey, like keep going, keep pushing forward to get this changed, because these things, he said, like it's not a judgment from him, it's more of a, hey, if people are still able to get hold of these, there will still be bad things that happen. So he does a lot of work, and they both do a lot of work from the other side to try and, they said, almost like balance the scales from what they did, and how what they did like kind of created some momentum in society, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. And so and it was very interesting, because when they came through, actually the people that they had taken off of the planet, they came through with them. And this was the second time they came through, and I had like slammed the door, like, absolutely not. And on them, there's no way. And then when they came through again a little bit later, this crowd of people came through with them, and they had their hands on their shoulders. And it was like the two of them were sitting in chairs, and the rest of them were putting their hands gently on their shoulders and their back, almost to show like support. It wasn't like a sit still, it was like a gentleness about it. And then the other ones, the other people that they took off the planet, they stepped forward and started to talk to me and said, we want you to understand, you know, what our perspective is on everything that happened and what we're all doing. And they were showing me kind of like their soul group and their cohort and everything. And so I ended up doing that channeling for a group, and there were a bunch of people that were like, this was so healing. I don't even know how to express it. Like, they were like, it's so difficult and it doesn't make what they did okay. So, and they were very clear about that. Like, there is no making it okay or excusing what they did on earth. And they were not trying to do that in any way. But they wanted to share all these things they learned, and they were giving so much advice, like, to people, and people were like, this is wild, because you can tell this is like their soul. Like, it's not the ego or the personality that they had on earth. Like, it's the true soul self coming through. And so that was life-changing for me. It also, I found when I ended up making contact with these beings on the other side that had done these really awful things, when they would come through from the soul self, they would wash me over with this feeling of unconditional, pure love and benevolence. And it started to heal me, and it helped me work through a lot of my pain and my anger and my sadness that I had lingering in my energy field from things they had done. And it helped me kind of work with a lot of the fears that I had. And they also said, you know, we also work with a lot of people on earth to help prevent these things, so that what we did doesn't happen again. So they were like, you know, our souls are very much on the other side, actively, like, you know, trying to counteract, the things that we did on earth. And they said, now we know a lot of people wouldn't want to hear that and wouldn't want to know that, but that's part of what we do on the other side. And they said, and we don't have to do it. we do it out of pure love. We want to do this. It is not a punishment. It's not a job. We don't have to do anything. That's not how Source is. There is no forcing and no obligation with Source, because that's not how our pure love, God, the universe, Allah, Source is. It is truly all about pure like free will and divine benevolence. So one of the things that they kept saying was, we do this because we purely truly want to do this stuff from the other side. And so they had showed me that is very much, what they do now. And all of these beings, again, like it was so healing for me. So I started to realize very quickly that what I was doing, I wasn't just channeling people that were well known. And again, like I felt like I was supposed to give a voice to them to share things that a lot of their messages were incredibly healing. Like when Marilyn Monroe came through, she came through as Norma, and she came through as her true self. And she talked about what real beauty is and what it means. Like she talked about, the societal standards that we hold for women. And I was like, this is wild. And so to keep in mind, as a clear channel, I would never know exactly what they were going to talk about until they got there. But so many of them had such cool things to share. They were talking about what they learned about fame, what they learned about, money and finances and what really matters in life. They talked about different things that they did and, and what they learned from it and how we could do things differently. And they were like, I want to help people live better lives on earth. And that's what came through over and over and over and over and over is like, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to share my story. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to share my story. And so I channeled quite a lot of people. And I found that it was just such a beautiful, beautiful wave of beings coming through, along with more spiritual beings like ascended masters and stuff like that also came through. Which helped me do some of my deconstruction work and helped heal some of my preconceived notions about different religions and different beliefs and stuff like that. So it was really cool. And so I want to start to return to some of that channeling work and something I've been really, really passionate about. And again, when I start to open that door, when it's like a spirit-led thing, I'm really, really picky about it. And like I said, I try not to, put too much of a filter on it, not in terms of what they say, but like who I allow in. And I don't do spirit-led on lives just because on TikTok lives or anything else, just because I don't think that that's always the smartest practice when you have a whole bunch of people there, because then it could be any number of their loved ones that try to come through. It's just a lot of energy for a medium. But when I'm kind of like saying to these different beings, hey, like what stories do you have to share with me? What do you want to be put out there? I find that it's always something really profound and really healing. And it's not even about just what they say. It's like the energy that flows through me. And other people, again, like over the years were like, oh my God, I cannot thank you enough for this channeling. And now I just like they would often say, this just landed. Like, I don't know what it is. It just, like a lot of people would say, there's just something really beautiful about this. Like it helped a lot of people kind of heal certain perceptions that they had or misconceptions that they had about themselves and life and the world and what we're here for and what we do. And so I'm going to be creating more episodes where I am channeling people from the other side who have messages that they want to come through and share. And I am going to let it be a little bit spirit-led, but I have noticed that when I love like to read other people's stories. I love to hear other people's stories. I'm a huge biography person. So I read a lot of stuff where even books where it's like, there'll be a collection of stories about other people's experiences. I love to read stuff like that. I love to hear other mediums and psychic stories. I love to, I love biographies. And something that I've been really passionate about is not just like mysticism and spirituality and, different people here on earth and their gifts and their abilities. And I will definitely be bringing on some people who are very much alive on earth to share their stories and talk and chit chat. That's something I absolutely want to do. And I'm just trying to coordinate different interviews and stuff right now. But I really want to bring through people from the other side, especially women who didn't get to have a voice, largely because they were overshadowed in society. They were cut out of the history books. Their work was, some man put his name on it. as things evolved over the last, like, even just like 5 years, I started to realize how many amazing women there were throughout history that we just didn't learn about in school. And I started to become very, very passionate about sharing their stories. And each time I would read about someone who, or watch a documentary about them or whatever, every time that would happen, they would come through from the other side and they would chuckle along about things that were written or things that were in there and like, oh, that's not accurate, or, oh yeah, that actually happened that way. And so I've even had, like, Julia Child has loved to come and hang out with my son and I on and off over the years. My son actually was like obsessed with her when he was really young for like 4 years. Like, he's in elementary school, and he did one of his school projects on Julia Child. So it's very, very interesting, these different people who have come through, but it's also interesting to hear from their spirit and hear what their spirit wishes people would know on earth to help us live a better life. So it's not just about them, it's also advice and wisdom they want to bring. And I always say the other side has so much more wisdom than we could ever imagine. And we just have to be open to receiving it. And I try to stay very, very open because they are omniscient and omnipresent. So they can, when we're out of the body, we go beyond all time, space, dimension, and reality. Like, immediately we return to the soul self. We return to our source, and we remember our sovereignty and can have the experience of it. But we are very much in that soul and source self. So they always say that's part of like what it means to be the soul, to be the source, is just to know exactly who you are, as like an eternal being who has lived all of these many lifetimes and has all of these many infinite experiences that are really connected to every experience anywhere and anytime. So, a lot of them I have been noticing as they continued to come through over the years. I was like, gosh, I wish I was still doing this type of channeling work. And I had kind of taken a little hiatus from it from a little while, especially with like the more famous people type of channelings. Mostly during the pandemic, I took a little breather from it. But I started to feel like, yeah, it's time again. I can feel it coming back online. And as many of you know, I've been on TikTok for a while and doing different types of channelings there. But I really feel like this is what I'm meant to do and who I'm meant to channel. And I always say, I'm going to start where I am. And often I'm surprised by who comes through and what they say because I just blind channel it. I just let it, when you clear conduit, you kind of just move aside and you make space for them to come in and share what they want to share. It's not about you. It's not about what you think. Often I will notice my brain observing what they're saying, and like almost like I'm watching myself talking, and I'm like, I didn't know that about them. I didn't like, is that true? Oh, I never believed that before. And then they'll like literally keep talking, or they'll respond to me like, yeah, it is true. And I'm watching myself talk. And so it is a really interesting experience. So I wanted to share that because that's where we're going to start to head. Not all of the episodes, but more and more often you'll see some of those on here. I'm hoping to do like maybe once a month in the beginning, if not a little bit more often. I also find that like when I'm open in this way too, it just brings through such profound insights and wisdom and connects so many more dots than I think many of us thought was possible. And so I wanted to let you guys know that I'll be headed in that direction. I also would still love to do more actual interviews with people who want to come on and share their stories on here too, so that I have someone to chit chat with. I don't like always just being like a talking head on here. It's not my favorite thing. Like, I know I'm meant to channel, but I also like to have conversation with people too. So I'm hoping to do that more and more in the future. And if you have questions about any of these channelings, or you want to talk about certain beings or, people that have come through to you, and just know it's not a very weird thing for someone who's well known for you to feel very connected to them after they pass, for you to hear from them, or I always tell people you can just say to them, hey, I'm not comfortable. Or you can say, okay, is there a message you have for me? Is there something you want to teach me or something you want to help me with? Because if you do have someone well-known coming through, even someone that you would have no way of having met or have known on earth, it's likely that they have something important to tell you. And why keep that wisdom out just because you're judging the package that it's coming in, And so I always say, like, as mediums and as clear channels, we're just the messengers. We're not here to judge what's coming through. We're not here to judge the beings. And the more that we can remove our judgment, the more wisdom we're going to gain, the more love we're going to bring to us and through us. And the more we're going to serve our purpose that's not just about self, but about service to other equally while we're here on earth. So if you have any stories you want to share, if you have questions about any beings, if you have any requests for people that you would like to hear from, feel free to use the link in the bio or the link in the show notes to submit your stories and questions for the podcast. I'm happy to see who I can start to bring through. Like I said, a lot of them are spontaneous for me. When I get this door open again, it's like all of a sudden they're like, okay, knock, knock, we're ready. I want to share my story. And I'll often end up with like a huge list of them. So feel free to reach out as well, though, because I want you guys to be able to request some things too, and tell us, who are you interested in hearing from on the other side? What questions would you want to ask them? Like, what are you really curious about? And just know that, in terms of clear conduit channeling, it's not a weird thing at all. It's really the thing that people do when you see really like profound speakers, where they are just flowing with what they're saying and they don't have to memorize it and they don't have to think about it. Like Gabby Bernstein is one of the ones that I think of like immediately when I think about clear conduit channelers. It's almost like something peaceful washes over you while you're doing it. And it's almost like you just know exactly what to say. You don't even have to think about it. You don't have to plan it. So I always say with clear conduit channeling too, you want to leave things open enough so that you can clearly channel, because you have to leave your kind of like bias and control stuff out of it in order for the clear messages to really, really, really come through. And so I found that when I started doing more clear channeling, it wasn't just that I was bringing through beings from the other side. It was that I started to notice even in my day-to-day conversations that I was finding myself just knowing exactly what to say and when and exactly how to say it. Like I would go into a certain, even like I had one or two very, 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 very high conflict, conversations during this time where I was, doing all this channeling work. And I went into the conversation with this person on earth, which I won't get into details, but as an example, I felt like it almost felt like this higher essence just took over in the conversation, and what came out of my mouth completely changed where the conversation was going. And it was like something beautiful dropped in. And at the same time, I was standing in truth and strength, but it was a calm and clear strength. It wasn't dominating. It wasn't controlling. It wasn't a power struggle. There was no arguing. It was just very clear. And it completely changed the dynamic between me and that person forever. Like our dynamic is still infinitely better, and much lower conflict because I let that energy just come through. It was almost like my higher self just said, move out of the way. I'm going to help you with this. And they love to do that and love to help with that. I also found that I used to have really, really, really bad social anxiety. For those of you guys who haven't heard that story yet, I had undiagnosed social anxiety and really clinical depression for a very, very, very long time. Like we're talking like early childhood all the way through my 20s, and like really, really, really bad social anxiety. It was so intense that I ended up actually having issues with eating disorders and like body dysmorphia and all sorts of things. And I am in a very healthy place now and have been for like probably like 12, 13 years. But maybe a little bit longer, but really a lot of that, like this, being able to speak in front of people was not something I knew that I could do. If you had told me I would be doing this later when I was in my teens, I would have been like, you are off your fucking rock. There's no way, pardon my F-bomb, but that's like literally the visceral reaction I would have had. I would have thrown up on the spot just from you telling me. And so that's how terrified I was of speaking in front of other people. I would get nervous to talk in front of people that I even knew very well, like my friends. Like I would get social anxiety around my own friends growing up. And like, or certain like things in class where I would like have to raise my hand to answer a question. I'd be like, oh, I know this one. And if I was having a good day, I'd raise my hand. And by the time they got to me, I would stutter and sweat and my face would go beet red, even though I was like, I know the answer. It's not like I didn't volunteer to raise my hand. But I would still have like almost a complete anxiety attack or a panic attack over answering a question in college. Like it was just, so I used to have it really, really bad. And when I started clear conduit channeling, I noticed it was such a wave of peace that washed over me. It was like this anxiety just washed away. So even when I started to do more clear conduit channeling, a lot of people that knew me and knew that I had always been a lot quieter when I was younger and more timid, etc. Those people like literally were like, "Are you okay?" Because I changed so much overnight that it made them worried, even though I was doing a lot better. So that's like how good that, how much that clear conduit channeling or clear channeling can really change things. Plus I was meditating like a ton. And I know in my gut that like the deep meditations, the Kundalini awakening experience that I had, all these things like added up to open this channel. And I really believe it had to happen very fast for me because of the amount of anxiety I had. I probably would have pushed it off forever if they had been like, cool, go at your pace. Like, so there was something in me that was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And so when my awakening happened really, really, I always jokingly say fast and furious because there's a lot of inside jokes with that, but it very much was something that just happened so fast. It was almost like it was completely out of my control. And yet I knew it needed to happen. And so ever since then, I've felt like I have been profoundly altered in terms of how much anxiety I have. It doesn't mean I never have fear or never feel anxiety or never feel worried or never, but it's not like consuming my day to day. So I wanted to mention too, if that's something you're interested in, I have my course opening up and it's called The Art of Channeling, and it'll be to help people who are wanting to find their voice and their clear choice, who are wanting to not just listen to their intuition, but feel more seamless, feel more in flow, feel more at ease as they go about their daily life. Because when you start channeling more, the energy just moves through your body and you have a lot less resistance, not just to channeling or to speaking or to saying certain things, but to doing things that you need to do, like normal everyday things. You have less resistance to going with the flow with your intuition. You have less resistance to showing up and doing the work in the world that you're meant to do. You're more likely to take action on your ideas. When you show up in certain situations, again, that higher self or that like just knowing exactly what to say and when can kick in. You will find that your creative projects just start to flow through you. Like one of the things I saw was that I started waking up very early in the morning compelled to write. And what was coming through me were like was in an amazing articulate voice that I knew like, this is not me. This is something from the other side, and I can't stop writing because this is so important, so profound. And so I really want to just say that like your channeling ability can work in so many wonderful ways, and really only you get to really choose that, and your soul will have a knowing of how it needs to happen. So if you're interested in taking that course, we're going to start in April. And I just want to invite you in. It's going to be 7 weeks with a final week celebration. So like an 8-week thing, April through the end of May. And it's really just going to be for people that are like, yes, I'm ready to learn how to channel. You do not need to know how yet. You don't need to know how to do mediumship. You don't need to know how to talk to the other side or use your intuition at all. Honestly, I found that a lot of the techniques that I'll be teaching and working with you guys on will help your intuition. They will help your mediumship abilities. They will help your artistic talents. They will help your feeling of what your calling and your purpose is. They will help you move forward in life. That is truly what a lot of these things are for. And it's really all about how we move energy through the body. And so I find that a lot of people also have like really cool, unexpected experiences from working with the art of channeling. So wanted to mention that that's going to be available here soon. And if you guys have questions about it, feel free to reach out. Again, that's coming up here soon. And I'm also going to have a masterclass on how to connect with your spirit guides, almost as like a taster to what we'll do in the course, but also something small just for people who are like, well, I don't want to take a whole course. I just want to learn how to connect with my guides. We will have that masterclass on March 11th. So I will link that up in the show notes and hope you guys can come. Thank you again for listening to this episode of the podcast. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me and use the form on my website. I hope to hear your stories, and hopefully we'll get some requests on who to channel next. Goodbye.